Hi, this is Linda Noss, and this is the fourth video in the library series. I'm going to create another object to show you how objects can build on each other and interact with each other. Now, this is called the library project because we're going to basically be building a library. So what I want to do is I want to create not just books, but libraries are also made up of people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another object called the patron class. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one out here, and then I'm going to go up and hit a new class, and I'm going to call that class patron. Now most classes start with capital letters. In fact, all of them I make start with capital letters, so that's what you should also do. And click OK, and we'll see we now have a patron class. Now if we open this one up and we put it right next to the book class, we're going to use the same pattern that we used in the book class. In the book class we started off by deciding what information was going to define a book. So over here in our patron class we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to decide what information defines a patron. Again, for purposes of our demonstration here, we're going to keep it simple. I'm thinking that the patron has a first name and the patron has a last name, and the patron is going to have a library number. The library number, even though it's number, it's also a string because we don't really want to declare it as an integer or a double, because we're really not going to be doing mathematics with the library number. It's like a social security number or a street number. So we're going to just leave that as a string. So we're going to call this library number. Okay, and that's about it, I think. We don't really need to put anything more in there. So again, I've created 3 instance variables to define what a patron is. Okay, and then I'm going to create some constructors. Now over here I have 3 constructors. So we have to think about if we want all 3 constructors. I think we do want the default constructor. So we're going to go ahead and change the x equals 0 to fname. I have to be careful because capitalization matters. And fname is a string, and the default constructor means that you don't know what the name of the person is. So you set it to the default amount. So for each instance variable, I have to set up my default amounts. And then I have the library number, which is going to also be null. So there's my default constructor. And I'm just going to label this. Okay, the next one we want to make is a normal constructor, because that's what we did over here. So the easiest way to do this is, first of all, I don't need this right here, so I'm going to get rid of it. And then I'm just going to create my normal constructor. Copy. Paste, and they're very similar, so by copying and pasting the default constructor, it does a lot of work for me. So then all I have to do is go through and make some changes. And in the normal constructor, if we look over here, it has values that it brings in from the outside world for each one of my instance variables. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. In this case, I have 3 instance variables, and they all happen to be strings. So I'm going to start the first one with string. And it's just the first name, so it's going to call it F. And then the second one is going to be the last name. I'm just going to call that L. And the last one is the library number, so I'm just going to call it LN, library number. And then instead of setting these all equal to null, I'm going to set them equal to the parameter that came through from the outside world. So here is my normal constructor. I'm going to go ahead and compile it, make sure I haven't made any typos at this point. It all looks good. So there's my normal constructor. Now, following the pattern, if I go down and look at the next one, here's a copy of the book. Well, these are people, so I don't think I'm going to use the copy constructor on this one. I may decide I need it later, and I can always come back later and use it for my patron. But since I'm talking about people, I can't really, well, you don't really want to copy people. So then I'm going to do my accessors and my mutators. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the same thing I did over here. And I'm going to follow the same pattern. And since I'm following the same pattern, I'm just going to go ahead and grab an example over here in my book class and copy it into my patron class. But instead of get title, I want to get the first name and return the first name. Make sure that's correct. And then I can go ahead and copy this twice more, paste it in, and just change it to last name here, last name there, and library number here, and library number there. So now I get my accessors, and I can do that pretty quick using my copy and paste. And the last thing I want to do is do my mutators, so I'm going to go ahead and do my mutator. I'm going to copy it from the book class because it's the same pattern. Remember at the beginning of this series I told you that creating objects is all about patterns. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in, and instead of setting the title, I want to set the first name. And bringing in the first name in. So first name equals F. And then instead of setting the author, I'm going to set the last name. Just going to call that L. And I need one more because in this particular object I have 3 instance variables, so I need to set each one. Set the library number. And so I'm just going to call this LN, and then set that to LN. So I've got my mutators, my accessors, my constructors that I want at this point. The one thing I didn't do was the toString method, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the toString method from the book class, because again I'm going to follow the same pattern, and I'm going to paste it in here. And then instead of the specs of the book, it's going to be the specs of the patron. Instead of the title, it's going to be the first name. And this will be the variable for first name. This is going to be last name. And this is going to be a variable for last name. And the last one I need, because I do have a third one, is the library number. Spell it correctly. Save it. Return it. Save it. Compile it. And now you'll see that I have a patron class. Now I want to connect the patron class to the test book. So what I want to do is I want to go back and create a patron. So I can create another testing program for this if I want, or I can just use my test book. So maybe what I'll do is I'll create another class, call it test patron. Grab my main out of the test class for the book, put it in here. I don't need any of this stuff, so I'm going to just paste it right on top of it. And then I'm going to start going through and creating my patrons. Equals new. Again, I want to test all of my constructors. So you just want to go through and say, okay, new patron. First one, test the default constructor because there's nothing in the parentheses. The second one is going to test the normal constructor. So therefore I have to have 3 things in the parentheses. The first piece is the first name, and then the last name, and then the library number. So it's the first name, sorry, the last name, and the library number. Now the library number can be, if you look at your library card, it's probably a combination of letters and numbers. So I'm just going to create a library number that looks like that, and there's my patron. And then all I have to do is go through and change these and play with my testing program. So the whole idea behind a testing program is you want to make sure that you're testing every piece of the object. So patron 2 is already set up, so I can just go ahead and print them out. Patron 1 is not set up, so I have to go through and set him up. So instead of saying set title, it'll be set last name. Now another thing I want to test is if this works, and it does. So now I can say, okay, oops, sorry, and then pat1, excuse me, set last name, I don't know, there we go. Then I want to print out pat1 to make sure it works. Essentially, that's basically what I need to do for this. So I'm going to save that, compile it, go back to my main here, and you see that patron and test patron are connected. And there it is. The specs of the patron are Harry Wells and Susie Zuzel, and the library number is null. And the reason the library's number is null is because I never set it equal to anything. So that was a good test, because now I should go back and add another set, but this time I should say set library number. And then I have to make up a library number. And save it, compile it, and finally I'm going to run it one more time. And click OK. And there she is, Mary Suzel with the Nash number. Okay, so that works. Everything works. Now what I'd like you to do is to do the same thing I just did. I want you to create a patron. And in that patron class, I want you to put all your getters, your setters, your constructors, and then I want you to create a testing program for your patron to make sure it works. And we'll see you back in a little bit. Thanks.